Hey everybody, DM Jim here, and welcome to a new episode of the Tabletop Engineer. I recently got an email from a new player of Gaslands, the vehicle combat game, and he expressed that he's really enjoying the game, but he feels like his cars just aren't eye-catching on the table like other vehicles where someone has made a car using 3D printed parts or perhaps spare sprue pieces, like from this example. This is from one called Implements of Carnage. It has wheels and guns and armor plating and stuff like that. And he told me that he really liked one of my early videos where I showed how to make weapons and random things out of bits, electronic bits, and just garbagey parts. And he asked if I had any more advice in that area. So I thought to myself, let's get back to basics. What I'm going to do in this video is I want to make another car for Gaslands, but I want to use stuff that is not 3D printed and does not require, a bunch of purchases of sprues. What I have done is I have gone to the craft store and looked around and gotten some bits and pieces. I've also collected some items that I'm going to tell you about that you can get inexpensively. And I'm just going to make a car with, again, no 3D printed parts and no sprue parts. I just want to see what I can come up with using odd pieces. Let's get to the tabletop and let's see what I can come up with. Okay, the first set of little trinkets that I want to introduce to you are these. I got all of these at Michael's. I had a coupon that let me save quite a bit, but they're inexpensive to begin with. I think these were $3 and I got them half off. And they're called toggle clasps, but specifically, let me open this up. This is what I want to use from here. I'll probably end up using all of this at some point for some craft. But these little pieces right here grabbed my attention because they look like they could be used as bumpers or even armor. I'm going to be doing this car right here, and I'll have to cut off this ring, but they just seem to fit the look and style, right? All right, so I'll take two of those, and again, it looks like I've got 6 in each package. Plus you get these metal rings here, which don't know what these would be good for, but they do look like they could make turret, like where a turret would go on. But I already have something in mind for that. Now these are called jewelry pins, and you've seen these. These are the two-piece pins that you put on a book bag or something stick to. And what I got these for, I probably have some of these floating around somewhere, but these were $1, I think, for 5 or 6 or 10 or whatever. But as you can see, it's the little piece that you pinch, the two pieces, and the sticky part comes out. That right there could probably be used for something if I snip off the sharp end. But specifically, I'm looking at this piece because the first thing it appeared to me was it looks like a turret. I could glue, there's these two squeeze pieces here, which it's not focusing on very well. There we go. Those two pieces that look like little wings. That would be where you could glue on some metal gun barrels, right? Finally, I found this it's a bunch of little beads, and they're in different lengths. I'll always have a need for stuff like this for like fantasy treasure and stuff, but it's these longer ones that looked really good. See if I can get a couple of these out here without spilling the whole bunch. When I saw these, what occurred to me was they would make interesting engine air intake for the hood if you can glue them on properly. I'll need some tweezers, but as you can see, you put them on there, you can make a 4x2 or 2x3 or whatever you want. They're a little tricky, but again, very small, but very inexpensive. So I'll be using those on this vehicle as well. I'm going to start by making some of these little air intake tubes. And what I'm doing here is cutting out a piece of sandpaper. The reason being is anytime you want to glue metal to a car, you need to take the paint off. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scratch here a little bit and get some metal exposed on the hood here. I'm going to prime this whole vehicle, so I don't care about the paint job, but I do want to scratch up the hood a little bit and expose that metal. Got my tweezers right here. Now, these are very sharp, so I'm always poking myself with these. So what I want to do is I want to lay down a line of super glue just a small bead of super glue. And I'm going to make 2 rows of these. So the super glue should dry pretty slow. Give me time to make sure these things go on there just the way I like them. So I'm just going to put one there. Well, right, come on. It's almost like it's magnetized. There we go. And take another one. The trick is going to be to line these up without tipping them over, and they are getting very tricky to work with. Come on. There we go. So once you put them down, you can use your tweezers to sort of put them where you want them. I think I'm going to go sideways with these. They're not wanting to let go. It's almost like they're magnetized, or the tweezers are, and that's possible. That's very possible. All right, so I'm going to do a third one right there. All right, come on. They keep wanting to twist. All right, there we go. Now, I'm going to use my tweezers to try and get that one. There we go. Very happy with how that is done. Let's see if it, there we go. I'm trying to get it focused for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that dry really well, and then I'll put a bead of glue down here and do 3 matching ones. While the glue's drying on those 3 pieces, I'm going to go ahead and cut off the ring on these 2 bits. I have a pair of snips here. These are my bad pair. I do a lot of, they're eventually going to dull and I'll have to sharpen the blade, but I don't care what I cut with these. I have another pair that I do care, and I should have probably worn, I'm going to put on a pair of eye shields while I'm doing that because that thing flew. Okay, I'm just going to file that down as best I can. Yeah, that did pretty good. Just want to dull it a little bit. Okay. All right. So there's one done. So I want to glue this to the front of the vehicle. So I am going to glue this with the sharp jaggy edge down towards the ground. That should give me a couple good connecting points. The point of the hood and then these 2 flares that are coming off, I think I can get it glued onto those as well. So to do this, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put the super glue on the spots I need it to attach to. 1, 2, 3. And I didn't skimp on the super glue there. Then I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to spray it with some accelerant off camera here because I don't want to get it near the camera. And then I am going to hopefully attach it and let that accelerant do its thing. Not bad. And I got to do one on the back as well. So let's go ahead and cut this one, do this one. And I'm going to do the same thing on this. I'm going to cut this piece off as close to, I'm going to hold it with a pair of tweezers so it doesn't go flying. There we go. Whew, that thing went flying. All right, so now I've got one for the back. And the good thing about the back is it's a straight line, so I should be able to glue that perfectly. I'm just going to lay a bead of glue down and drop it in place and then hit it with the accelerant. Remember, I'm gluing the part that the little clasp was cut off of. I'm pointing it down. I'm going to set this in there, center it up like that, and then hit it with the accelerant. There we go. Now I'm going to go wash my hands. Okay, those are on there pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure I've got 3 left, and I'm going to get a few extra out only because if I end up losing 1 or 2 off the table, I don't want that glue drying too fast, so I'm just going to have some extras sitting here ready to go. And I am going to put down another bead of glue here, just a line of glue. And then I will use the tweezers to place them and hopefully line them up properly. They're lined up as best I could get. All right, I'm going to go ahead and expose the top here for the turret. Just want to expose that metal on top. That's a lot of paint. Come on. There we go. All right. Probably shouldn't be breathing that stuff in, but yes. All right, now I'm going to glue this. And normally you could glue it facing forward so the guns are facing up, but you know, sometimes you want that action pose. So I tend to make the guns point off to the side. So I think that's what I'm going to do now. And again, this is what's unusual about this piece is you see these little diamond pieces. They stick up just a little bit. So that's where the glue's got to be applied. I'm pinching it by the little pincher pieces that you would do to release it. And I'm just going to put a dab of glue on all of these triangles, and then I'm just going to center it as best I can. Right. That looks good. I'm just trying to make it centered with the left and the right. And before that glue dries, I'm going to look at it from the front. Right now, I'm going to let all this super glue dry. The front, the back, the turret, and these air intake pieces right here. All right, so as you can see, this piece is pointing off that way. Now I've just got to find some pieces to make the machine guns, and then I'm also going to tackle these glass windshields. I'm going to drill out this rivet so I can separate the car into pieces. I have a drill here that is going to be very loud, and I apologize. I'll try to mute it a little bit in the video, and I have a can of air to spray away dust. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to hold this here. Let's see if you can see it right there. And I'm going to put this in the divot. There we go, separated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out and keep it because I want to put it back in for the seats and stuff. But I want to take out the windshield. I don't want the windshields. So now that I have this, I'm going to start working on the interior of the windshields. Okay, next I want to deal with the windshields. This stuff right here is a very fine mesh. I'll put a link below in the description where you can buy this. I got it off of Amazon. It was about $7 or $8 for a 2x1 sheet. It will last you forever if this is what you're using it for. But all you have to do, and it cuts with scissors. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut out a patch of it here, probably more than I need. All right, just so you'll be able to see it better. All right, so here is the mesh, right? So what I want to do is I'm not worried about the front windshield, not worried about the passenger one, but I do want to cover the back one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mold this to fit in there. It's kind of tricky because I have this metal post here. Now I could probably cut that out if I had the right tool, but I don't have it. So I'm going to cut a piece that is going to cover these rear windows right there, and the back one. And this is just sort of an eyeballing. What I do is I hold it over the thing and I go, okay, it's going to go to right about here. So I'm just going to cut a piece. I'm eyeballing this, and I'm going to trim it up square so I know kind of what I'm doing. And I'm trying to bend it in such a way that it will cover the rear window and the sides, and then I'll have to trim it so it doesn't interfere with the wheels. All right, so there we go. So that's not bad. And what I'm doing is I'm pushing out with my fingers, trying to expand this to fill in the windshield. Once it's molded, you can kind of fit it back in there. And I don't know if you can tell, but I've bubbled it out a little. It's actually sort of coming out. It's got a curve to it, and that's so it will fit right back in there. There's the curve part, and it just goes right up in there. So I've got a Sharpie, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to color the part I want to cut away for the wheels. Spin it around, do the same over here. I'm going to paint the car, so I don't care if it gets on the car. All right, that'll help a little bit. So now I can sort of trim that away. All right, so let's fit it in and see how I did with the cutoff. All right, so it goes back up in here. Not bad. So there we go. All right, so to hold it in place, it's metal on metal, and you know what I didn't do? I didn't sand, but that's okay because it's going to be inside. It's unlikely to, you could actually use a dab of hot glue, and my hot glue gun's not on, so I'm just going to use super glue. You could use a little hot glue just to hold it in place, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple drops of super glue and then hit it with the accelerant. All right, so now what I need to do is I need to do the inside windshield there. So this piece isn't as big, so I'm not going to cut a big, huge run of it. I want to fit it in there in such a way that it doesn't mess with the front windshields, but that I can glue it in place on the hood here. So I'm pressing it flat, and I'm going to make a mark where I need to cut. And that looks good, actually. So I made a mark here. I'm going to cut outside that line, not inside. If I glue it down, if I just hold it in there, yeah. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to drop a couple drops of super glue to hold it in place, and then hit it with the accelerant. And I'm going to let that dry really well, and we'll see how it did. All right, let's put it back together now. I'm going to take the seats, and usually there's a trick to putting this back in. You just got to figure it out. Here, there's a curved part at the nose here that's going to go around that post. So just stick it in there, press in, and it probably will just snap in. Actually, it's the back. You put the back in first, then you press down on that one. Okay, so let's see. Does that work? There we go. And it didn't mess up my windshield. All right, so it's in there, and it's pressure fitted. It's not coming out. There's a little bit of metal exposed right there. I'll get my file or something and push it back, like maybe yeah, I can do that. Just flatten it on the inside so you can't really see it. There we go. And then you don't want this coming apart, and it has a special way to go in. This one, the nose, it goes in with the nose. So the nose goes in, and then these just go right back in there. Now, because you destroyed the post, you're going to have to glue everything in, which I'm going to do 2 drops back here on these little indentations. That should be enough to hold it. There we go. I just pushed it in, and it stayed. All right, so far so good. Now it's time to get the machine gun. Time to work on the machine gun part. Okay, to make the twin machine guns for the turret, what I did was I got some heavy gauge wire. Now this is solid core, not threaded. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. What you want to do is you want to cut off about 3 inches or so. So what I do is I first stick it in here and I expose the copper wire. Now if you don't have this set of tools, if you can be careful, you could use a blade to cut a line around and then pull it off. But this is just a tool for stripping the sheath off the wire. I'll just do another one here. There we go. Yeah, the shorter it is, the easier typically it is to get the sheath off. I say that, famous last words, but here we go. I'll just use this piece. So get a couple pieces, like that. After you have a piece or two of this, what you want to do is you want to cut 2 equal lengths. So I'm just eyeballing this. All right, so there we go. I've got 2. And then you want to trim the edges, both, or at least one side, but probably both. Trim them flush. So trim those 2, spin them around, and trim those 2. So now I have 2 small barrels for the machine gun. Now you could use them as is, just like that, but I'm going to do one step further. So I'm going to get some more of those beads that I showed you earlier, and I'm going to get 2 of the long ones. 1, 2. Show those to you. Okay. 2 of these, all right? And the final step is I'm going to take my barrels and I'm going to trim one end at an angle so it's kind of got a sharp point. And I'm going to feed that into the tube so that it's sort of flush at the end. There we go. And I'll do the other one. So there we go. Now I've got 2 gun barrels. They look like little mini shotgun shells. You'll obviously want to straighten them up before you glue them on, and it's plastic, so you can bend it as needed. But you get 2 small gun barrels, glue those onto the turret before you prime it. The car is really, really weathered like I wanted it. The only problem now is there are some areas that are a little light in terms of the metallic paint. So I'm going to hit the whole car with a bit of this dark tone, and it's going to take off some of that shine quite a bit. And you don't have to do the wash. I've just learned that anytime you want a worn, weathered look, that if you give something a weathered look, if you don't use the wash, it can sometimes look a little fake, or you can see brush marks and things like that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get the brush really good and soaked in the dark wash, and then I'm going to start at the top and I'm going to hit all the metallics. Okay, the bumpers, the wheels. And then whatever is left over in the brush, I'm not going to soak it anymore after I get the metals covered really well. Get the windows. All right. And then whatever's left on this brush, just going to dry it just a little bit. And then I'm just going to brush the car with whatever wash is left on. There's enough there that it will stain the coloring and hopefully blend any of the paints that I've added. Now, again, this car is supposed to look really, really worn. So I will take some close-up photos as soon as the wash dries, and we'll see how it compared to pre-wash.